Hey, everybody, welcome to part two in my series about The Secret History of the World by F. Paul Wilson. And today I'm talking about Reborn. Now, in my last video, if you watched that about the Keep, I talked about how I wasn't sure how all of these books were going to connect. Um, there's a bunch of short stories, a bunch of novels. I own 22 of them. I'm reading them in the order that the story goes, according to a list that's in the back of the books. And this on the list comes right after The Keep, even though The Keep takes place in 1941 and this book takes place in 1968. And it turns out this is a direct sequel to The Keep. So, very connected. But they are both parts of the adversary cycle. So I should have guessed that there was a tighter connection than there may be with the Repairman Jack books. Don't know. Won't know till I read all this stuff. Um, so Reborn, as I said, takes place in 1968, and we start off right off the bat, first page. Excuse me. We have a character from The Keep, and the back of the book says an ancient artifact dissolves into nothing. That's 2 pages right there. I just saved you the first. No, you should read them. So we've got a character. Pardon me. I don't know what's up with my voice today. We've got a character from The Keep, and this ancient artifact dissolves in his hands. And then right after that, we meet this Pulitzer Prize winning, Nobel Prize winning geneticist, Dr. Roderick Hanley, and he dies in a plane crash and shouts out something about the boy. The boy will find out. People will find out about the boy. And then we meet our main cast of characters, Jim Stevens and his wife. His wife is Carol, I believe. There's somebody named Carol. It's got to be his wife. So anyway, we meet them. Lovely couple living in New York. Excuse me. Jim was adopted when he was a little tiny itty bitty baby, and he's always been searching for who his real parents were. And he gets a letter from a law firm saying he's supposed to show up at the reading of the will of Dr. Roderick Hanley. So, I wonder where that could lead. And creepiness and craziness ensues. And I mean, it's called Reborn. There's an ancient evil. There's a group of religious people that call themselves the Chosen that believe the Antichrist is coming back. And I don't think I'm giving anything away that isn't on the back of the book. Trying to avoid that, at least in this part. There might be some spoilers since this is it's a review of the book, but mainly a discussion overall of the secret history of the world. So, but that's the basics. That's where we're at when we start this book. Right off the bat, it's well written. I haven't read anything by F. Paul Wilson that wasn't. The characters are really interesting. There's a priest, Bill, who was friends with Jim Stevens. Make sure I get the name right. Jim Stevens back in high school, and even dated Carol back when they were in high school. And now he's a priest. He gets involved in all of this. He actually works at the orphanage where Jim Stevens was when he was a baby. So Jim goes there as he's searching for his real parents, reconnects with Bill. Jim and Carol reconnect with Bill, and so he gets involved in all of this. And there's all sorts of really interesting characters. Jim and Carol are very average people, which is nice, and they don't have a lot of conflict in their marriage. I don't know if that's become a trope, conflict in relationships, because to me it must feel like a trope, because I'm always pleasantly surprised when you have a couple that doesn't have any type of real conflict. I mean, it's typical stuff in their marriage, but not just horrendous conflict. They're not on the verge of divorce. There's nothing wrong with their relationship. It's a healthy relationship, which is nice to see. Not that I have anything against relationships in trouble. It just feels like there's a lot of that. I like the character of Bill. He's not a perfect man. He is a priest, but he's also a human, and he's portrayed as such. I like there's one orphan at the orphanage in particular that is really well drawn, and I really like that character. We meet Carol's aunt. Carol is, I guess she's an orphan as well, although she was never. Jim was adopted when he was a baby. Carol, her parents died when she was in high school, I believe. And she was raised by her aunt, so we get to know the aunt. We get to know the the couple, Jonah and Emma, who adopted and raised Jim. And they're all very interesting characters. I can't talk or don't want to talk too much about some of their character traits and things that go on with them because that would be spoiling a little too much, I think. So generally, as a review, I gave this 5 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. I think it's a fantastic story. It moves along. Well, when I first started reading this, I got into it, but when it was time for dinner or time for bed, or I always read on my lunch break at work, but when lunch was over, I didn't have a real problem putting it down. I was looking forward to when I could get back to it, but okay, lunch is over. I'm going to put this away. I'm going to get back to work. There comes a point in the book where I did not want to put it down. And the night that I finished it, I stayed up until it was finished. Bedtime be damned. Who cares if I have to get up at 4:30 or 5 in the morning? I'm staying up until this book is done. It starts moving. You've got great character development, and you've got some weird, creepy things going on early on, but then it just builds and builds. The pace builds, and then is it a spoiler to say there's a huge twist in the book? Maybe midway through, a little further than that. Let me know in the comments below, and because obviously I've already said it for this video, but I'll try to avoid it in other videos if you think that's a spoiler, because there is a huge twist, something incredibly unexpected, and it's basically from that point on where I did not want to put this down. I wanted to keep reading. I wanted to know what the hell was going to happen. So yeah, they're highly recommended. 5 out of 5 stars. Reborn, the second book of the Adversary Cycle. The second book I'm covering for the Secret History of the World series. Now, Secret History of the World, we established in The Keep that this world that we're reading about, which I suppose if you look at it from the author's point of view, it's our world. That's the point of calling it the Secret History of the World. This is the real world, but there are things that we, the people, the general populace, don't know about. So we'll keep looking at it from that perspective. So those of us who are in the know now because we're reading the books learned in The Keep that there are huge forces of good and evil battling within the world. Most people don't know about them. But now we, the readers, do. And that continues in Reborn. As I said, we've got a character from The Keep that's in this book. And they don't just appear in those first couple pages when this ancient artifact disintegrates. They are in the whole book, but they are not a major player in the book, and they don't play as large a role in this as they did in The Keep. But it was nice to see this character again. Even though I'm an atheist, I enjoy books that deal with religion. For me, and no offense to anybody who is a believer, But to me, Christianity, and that is the religion that we're talking about here, is as fascinating a mythology as Greek mythology, Roman mythology, Norse mythology, love Egyptian mythology. Um, they're all fascinating to me, and I think horror novels work really well. Well, of course, it always depends on the writer, but I think they can work really well when they deal with religion. And in excuse me, in The Keep, of course, since it was Germany in 1941, the focus was kind of on Judaism, even though because it was a vampire tale, Christianity comes into it a bit because of crosses and all that stuff. But they weren't as much of a driving force as religion is in this. As I said, we have this group, the Chosen. They're charismatics, I believe is what they're called, and it's this sort of group of people that have been drawn to New York, um, because they believe the Antichrist is coming, and I like that kind of stuff. I meant to say earlier that this book, to me, is kind of I got the vibe, kind of an Omen vibe, a Rosemary's Baby kind of vibe, uh, mixed with Michael Crichton, because we do have this Nobel Prize winning geneticist, and there is science in this as well. So Michael Crichton or Preston and Child, that kind of thing. So, and I like this mix of science and religion and horror, and F. Paul Wilson, being a doctor, um, does I don't know what his religious affiliation may be, but I think he does all this. He mixes it all well together, and it all seems it seems that he's knowledgeable. I'm sure he did anything he didn't know offhand. He did research on. Um, so so we've got that religious aspect. So 2 books so far, 2 pretty heavy religious things going on. Um, Again, they're both part of the adversary cycle, so they tie together very tightly. Um, and just 2 books in, I'm already hooked. The thing is, the next book that I'm going to read and talk about is The Tomb, which is the first of the Repairman Jack books, the first one written, and technically the first one before relatively recently, when he wrote 3 young adult Jack books and then 3 Jack prequels, none of which I have, so those won't be in here. And it's going to jump ahead quite a few years, the timeline, from 68 to I don't know when. And here's the problem where talking about years now is going to get kind of iffy, so this might be the last time we talk about it. In the back of these books is a list of all the stories and everything that cover the secret history of the world. And we have year 0. I've said this in the other videos. I'll go over it again here, probably the last time, hopefully. Year 0 is when Night World, the last book, takes place. And this is the year that the world, he says, how does he say it? Year 0 is the end of civilization as we know it. Year 0 minus 1 is the year preceding it, etc. And what we've had in the list so far, we've had the past. That's where The Keep and Reborn take place. Once we get past the stories that are in the past, we jump to year 0 minus 3. So it's 3 years preceding the end of the world as we know it. Here's the problem. Even though there's a book called Ground Zero that deals with the attack on the Twin Towers on September 11th, 2001, from what I could see, the book Ground Zero takes place a few years after that, or some years after that. I haven't read the book yet, so I don't know if it specifically says how many years after that. And Ground Zero looks like it's in year 0-1. So we have the end of civilization as we know it. Please try to follow along. We have the end of civilization as we know it with Night World. The year preceding that, we have Ground Zero, which takes place some years after September 11th, 2001. And then all the books before Ground Zero are either in year 0-1, year 0-2, or year 0-3. So only 3 years. So, depending on if Ground Zero takes place 4 years after September 11th, then everything that I'm going to be reading from now on in this list takes place after the collapse of the Twin Towers. So I don't know if there are any dates that are going to set this in stone. I feel like I'm rambling, but I'm trying to get this across. I don't know if it matters to anybody what the actual time frame of all this is, but I mean, that's what this series is about, talking about the secret history of the world. So anyway, as far as I can tell, the only solid date so far, we've got The Keep in 1941, Reborn in 1968. That's all I've got for years. I don't know that anything else is going to be concrete. I've mentioned before that The Tomb, which I've read twice before, I read an original copy, and Repairman Jack used payphones, and I believe he was watching things on VHS. The newer edition that I have was revised, and he's using a cell phone, and he's watching either Laserdisc or Blu-ray. I can't remember which. But it was obviously updated because if you're going to compact these novels that were written over, say, 30 or however many years, compact them down into a 3-year span, and we know somewhere in there is 2001, it had to be updated. Wow, I've gone on about this probably far too long. Anyway, The Keep was great. Reborn, fantastic. 5 out of 5 stars. The next book that I'm going to be doing for this series is The Tomb. When I do that video, whenever that comes out, because I still have to read it, that's when I'll go over the stories that take place, just a list of the stories that take place between Reborn and The Tomb. And then I'll review that and see if it ties in with this or not. I believe there's at least one thing that happened at the end of this that ties into it a little bit, kind of hints at it. We'll see. Even though I've read it twice, it's been a while since I've read The Tomb, so I do need to reread it and refresh my memory. So that's what's coming up. I apologize if this got a little crazy there at the end. Now, I believe I've read the first 4 Repairman Jack books. I know I've read the first 3. I think I've read 4. But once I'm past those, then everything else I'm going to read in this series is going to be brand new to me. So I think that'll be interesting, at least for me. I don't know how you feel about it, but I'm looking forward to getting to that stuff. Anyway, that's it for this installment of F. Paul Wilson's Secret History of the World. If you have any comments, questions, or corrections, please put them in the comments below. Hopefully I didn't spoil anything too much. If we are going to get into spoiler territory, please just post a spoiler warning. And please like, share, and subscribe. That's all I've got. So until next time, read more books.